here we go again for another Tuesday Night Live edition. This one looking at the trade period. I'll hand you over to our host, Peter. How you going, Pete?
Good, thanks, mate. Thanks very much, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Tuesday Night Live Adelaide Crowcast. Great to have you all with us again for this Tuesday night. And unfortunately, our regular panellist, NIKKI, is unable to make it this evening, but we've got Macca 23. How are you, Macca?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, good evening, all.
Good, and also he's come back and joined us for another week, and we're very, very lucky to have him, of course. He's the AFL writer for Over the Line Sports. I speak of Corey Wade. How are you, Corey?
Yeah, good, thanks, Pete. It's good to be joining you guys again.
Yeah, great to have you. And thanks. How are you tonight, mate? Have you got over the trade fortnight?
I'm less said the better, probably.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to go there, and we won't swing to Nikki's news, I guess, seeing she's not here. We will just push on, and we will just look at...
what was that?
I've got no idea what that was.
That was my phone. Sorry, I forgot to put it on silent.
That was really good, considering we didn't have any Nikki's news.
I thought that was a substitute from you, Phoenix.
Yeah, that's right.
It certainly came at the right time. It came nicely at the right time there, Corey. We're relying on you for a bit of professionalism, actually, and
it's not happening.
It's just not happening.
I just retweeted the Crowcast tweet, and already getting a notification back.
Anyway, let me play the music because I've got it all queued up here, Pete.
All right, mate, you do it. All right. Well, as we said, Nikki's not joining us this evening, so we will get on to some news. Does anybody want to jump in and start the segment along?
The first thing I heard, and it's not trade related or anything, but there's still conjecture about Jobe Watson's Brownlow, and the comments today were that he was contemplating falling on his sword and handing it back.
Well, thank goodness for that. Yeah, sorry, Corey, you go.
Yeah, no, I think he needs to. It's just been dragged out by the AFL. I think they're waiting for him to do it on their behalf because they really want to pull the trigger themselves.
Classic AFL. You're absolutely right, Corey. Sit back, wait forever. Eventually he'll think, I better do it. And then nobody can accuse the AFL of having done it.
Without wishing to sound unkind, I think the time was almost past for him to get any kind of kudos for falling on his sword. I think that if he'd done it pretty much directly after the result of the appeal had come down last week, I think if he'd done it immediately, then I think that there's some kudos in that. But to continually be fart-arsing around with it and expecting the AFL to make a decision, I think for me he gets no brownie points whatsoever for falling on his sword at this late stage.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
I tend to agree there, yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
The report is that Essendon still feel as if he's got a case to hang on to it. Well, Essendon have felt they've had a case all along, so I don't know how much validity is in that comment, but I agree with you. They've exhausted everything, and, to give it back at the 11th hour is, it's a small compensation for the 2 years or whatever it is of hanging on to this stupid thing. I wonder which way they'll go in terms of dishing it out to Cochin and Mitchell, or whether they'll just null and void. We talked about that last week, of course.
And we differed, of course. My opinion was that we should null and void because it does affect all the other votes, etc. But if he had been caught with or rubbed out at that stage. So I think the only fairest thing is to have no winner for that year. And I wish he would hand the bloody thing back quickly so that we would stop talking about bloody Essendon.
I agree, and it really is the last thing, isn't it? It's the last thing now. It's the last little bit of work that has not been tied up, and we really need to have this a full stop on this whole saga.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Anything else happening around the AFL before we get to trade fortnight? That was a very dominating feature, of course.
We're going to Darwin in July next year to play Melbourne.
Really?
The Crows tweeted that out earlier this evening.
No, I didn't see that. Well, I was out.
Yeah, so our first trip to Darwin to take on the Demons. I think it's July 15 or 17-ish.
Is
Well,
that because
all
of
I
the
can
Power
s-
going to China?
Power still have 2 Melbourne games as well, if I read it correctly. Sorry, Darwin games as well, or NT base games.
Well, all I can say is that if you haven't been to Darwin, get up there because it is a cracking place. I've spent 6 months there and I absolutely loved it. So that will
Yeah,
be
you
that'll
mentioned it
be in
to
my
my wife
calendar.
straight away.
Yeah, that'll be in my calendar. That is a great trip to do.
Pete, I have to differ with you, mate. The humidity up there, I was up there just on the still a bit of the wet season, if you like walking around in drenched wet clothes all the time, well, it's fine.
Oh, mate, I did October to March and it was spectacular. Just used to sit out in the pool with a beer and get rained on and watch the storms. I used to absolutely love it. It's a fantastic place.
Am I right in saying that Melbourne haven't won one of these Darwin games yet?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know, mate.
Not sure. Well, they
I
lost to
think they
Port
have.
this year.
No, I think you're
At
right.
Traeger Park.
Yeah, because there was an article. I remember that I think they lost last year, and probably the year before. There's been articles. Is it worth selling your game for money to lose the points?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I reckon I've read that too.
Yeah, well, go us for allowing them to open their account this next season then.
Well, I
I'm
think
trying not to
win
be
that we
pessimistic.
need.
I'm very happy with it actually because that's always a very tricky fixture to play in Melbourne at the MCG, and I think that if we're playing an away game against them in Darwin, I think that's a good result.
I will say one thing. It's having been there, it's a beautiful oval.
Well, I wonder whether it'll impact the amount of games that we have at the MCG next year.
Well, it may well because that's a good point as well because that is one game that we do tend to get a bit is Melbourne at the G. So it may. I think we got 2 there last year, didn't we? Carlton and Melbourne, and they're the ones we traditionally seem to get.
Yeah,
I think we've got
and
Hawthorn
we
to round
struggle
2, haven't we?
against. Well, it seems though that fixture that's been released on Twitter and likes is the fake one because there was no mention of the Melbourne game in Darwin on there. So yeah, not sure where that sits.
Where did everyone go?
No, we're here, mate.
Well,
Just waiting to say something?
I think it's a really good result and very, very happy for us to go up and have a game in Darwin, and it should be good value. All right, I think that what we should do is look at Trade Fortnight. It was without question, the biggest news of the last week, and I think this time last week we were sort of wondering how it was all going to turn out, and I, for one, stuck my neck out and felt fairly confident, I have to say, that we would have got the Bryce Gibbs trade done. It's, of course, history now that we didn't. So I guess I throw that open to everybody to jump in. I'm sure that we've all got our opinions on that and how it went down.
Well,
Yeah,
just before we go there, sorry, Vardy Magic put something on chat which I'll just read to you in relation to Hawthorn and the O'Meara trade. Basically, looks like a cut and paste from an article, but it's basically the AFL has admitted to making a blunder in this year's biggest trade, Jaeger O'Meara to Hawthorn. Confusion surrounded the blockbuster deal until the AFL clarified on Tuesday that the Hawks have been allowed to part with their first 2 selections in next year's draft. AFL rules state that once a club trades its future first-round pick, it cannot trade any additional future picks. The week before the O'Meara trade, Hawthorn sent its future first-round selection to St Kilda in a deal that also raised eyebrows. But the league told the Herald Sun it had interpreted its own rule to mean the O'Meara deal was legal. The AFL said Hawthorn was permitted to trade its future second-round selection so long as it acquired another club's first future second-rounder. So basically, this is on the back of the ruling that they made for Geelong, saying that you can't, which basically amounts to you can't say that they've broken a rule until they've actually broken the rule. So whilst they've actually traded away next year's first and second, as long as they acquire a second rounder next year before the draft, so during next year's trade period, then they've basically met the conditions of the rule.
And what happens if everybody refuses deliberately to give them one?
Well, that's what I reckon. I mean, surely the other clubs will go, no, bugger you, we're not going to give you a second.
I'd be very angry at any club that helped them out. I mean, this is a dog-eat-dog industry, and they've broken the bloody rules, and they've got advantage from breaking the rules, so why help them out?
So there's a couple of clubs that are going to be on interesting ground next trade period. Geelong and Hawthorn, both looking to restock a pick that they've used, which if they don't replace, will see them breach that rule. But the reading that I've done on that rule is basically that they'll be restricted from trading future first round picks or future picks in some way. So they won't be stripped of any picks. They won't be financially penalised. They'll just be restricted from trading picks for a period of time which isn't specified in the rules. So it's a pretty wet lettuce leaf punishment for that particular crime. And I always thought with the Geelong one that they've basically had a look at it and gone, well, you know what, if it's worthwhile taking the hit if we do.
Well, the penalty, I think, will be fairly clearly will be for 2 years they won't be able to trade their first or second round draft pick.
Yeah, which they probably
isn't
won't really care about.
it's not a bad thing anyway because you're keeping your picks.
Yeah, so I suppose it doesn't matter if you do help them out.
Yeah.
All right, well, that leads us, I guess we can probably lead that back into the trade fortnight. I'll have another crack at seeing if we can get this topic up. It's,
Sorry, Pete.
No, that's all right, mate. It's I think it's important that we do have a chat about it, and so just going back there, what do people think as to how it turned out?
Well, our trade period, it was almost the Seinfeld trade show because all about nothing. But because we did actually trade out Lions, and so our goal in strengthening our weak field obviously is to have less of a midfield because we gain nobody. But having said that, and that's a bit of ironic, being a little bit sarcastic, but with the Gibbs situation and being asked for 2 first rounders for him, not in a mad fit, he's just a pick 13 and probably that's fair value for him. Carlton, obviously, in my opinion, wanted to bleed our bums because of the Eddie Betts situation. That Eddie Betts is making them look stupid for letting him go, and they didn't want to repeat with the Gibbs situation. And I think that's where it starts and ends. And we should have walked away a lot earlier.
What do you reckon, Corey?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel really. It's just an absolute balls up of a process.
I agree, Macca, absolutely. This was an absolute fiasco and a fuck.
Well, Pete, you're dropping out there, mate. You might have to drop in and drop out, I think. Something's gone wrong with your internet, Pete. Just while Pete's...
This trade had been in the wings.
No, he's muted. Get out, Pete.
What?
Look, what I think, Macca, is that whilst 2 first rounders may have been overs for Gibbs, if you're going to make the call that we need experience in the midfield and you get someone land in your lap like Gibbs did, then why don't you pay it?
You don't pay double. It's what it's worth, though. Seriously, you just don't pay double. We would have been the laughing stock of the whole AFL if we paid 2 first round draft picks for Gibbs.
But I think if we were to get a second round pick back in return, I don't think there would have been as big a concern about it, because there would have been 5 to 6 positions max between a first round pick to when Carlton's second round pick would fall.
Yes.
So from that point of view, I don't see it as a major concern.
But that wasn't on offer. That's the whole situation.
Well, you don't know that, Macca. Macca, what are you trying to achieve? Like, not you personally, but what is the club trying to achieve? What outcome are we looking for?
It was trying to strengthen its list and its target. They wanted too much, and sometimes you just have to walk away because you don't allow yourself to be publicly screwed, or maybe you do. I don't know.
Well, you've got to think about, like, to my way of thinking, you've got to look at the outcome. And if you look at the trade in isolation, of course, 2 first-rounders for Gibbs is overs, way overs, right? But if you're going to make the judgment that we're 1 or 2 solid midfielders away from a honest, genuine premiership contention, then who cares what picks you give away to get the players that you need? What does it matter?
Well, it matters in this sense.
And we would have been...
Well, sorry, Corey, but
we would have been, yeah, no.
But it would matter if we did what you said and we finished 6th again.
Yeah, I know, but at some stage, you've got to actually be decisive and make a call, Macca. You've got to put your balls on the line. So we've just taken another each-way bet, as far as I'm concerned. And at some stage, you've got to think to yourself, well, you look at the Sydney game and you look at the West Coast game and you go, we got towed up in the middle and we got beaten by big-bodied, experienced midfielders who got their hands on the ball first. So if you're going to make the call that we lack that, there were 2 players available, Rockcliffe and Gibbs, as it turned out. No one really knew about Gibbs until trade period came up. One of those blokes wanted to come to us. The other one was entirely gettable and got cheaper as the period went on. Now, at some stage, you've got to think to yourself, well, we've got to go balls out here and get those 2 players and live and die by the sword. What you're suggesting is that, if we came 6th again, it would have been a fail. Well, so what? At least the club's had a plan.
Well, now, my plan would have been, it was all along was to try and get both Gibbs and Rockcliffe. And if, as I said, by giving 2 first-rounders to Carlton, they would give us their second rounder, which we could then give to Brisbane and get Rockcliffe and get the 2, I would go along with what you're saying. But
the trade wasn't on our terms, Macca. They were an unwilling seller, right? They didn't put Bryce on the trade table. So we were coming to them saying, we want this player that has 3 years left to go on his contract, so obviously he's a required player. Now, you're not going to get him for what he's worth. You've got to pay overs. And considering where we are with a 27-year-old Rory Sloane and a 27-year-old Tex Walker and, our key posts, in the 25 to 26 bracket, we're right in the slot age-wise. And you do what you have to do to get the outcome that you want. And sure, if they'd have said, look, we want your first and your second this year and next year, you go, well, we just can't afford that, and you walk away. Yeah. But we dragged that situation on for 2 weeks, hoping that they would blink. And as far as all the reports are concerned, we never put an offer to them that was even close. The best we got was 13, Jake Kelly, and next year's 3rd rounder, which is bullshit. That's not a serious offer.
It's more than he's worth.
But it's not, Macca. It's not because
not
he's a contracted
3 years
player.
Left of a contract. Yeah.
Look,
you're not talking about his worth on the basis of his ability. You're talking about his worth on the market based on what his current situation is. He's got 3 years to go on a contract.
Last year, 24 players who were contracted were traded, and nobody played bloody premiums of 100% for their.
Guess what, though, Mac? And none of them had 3 years to go on a contract. They were all in their last year of their contract.
Not all.
Just to separate you guys, am I coming through clearly? Can I just?
Yeah, you are now, mate. You can rant now. Oh no, you're dropping out again, mate.
What I would say about this is just let me know if I do, but
difficult.
That ain't working.
It's not working. Look, I understand where you're coming from, Macca, but we didn't do anything. We didn't try to. We didn't. There's two ways we could have gone. We could have either done what we were just talking about and say we're 1 or 2 mids short. We need to put our asses on the line and get those players, or, and this is what confuses me about the club's line is, back the kids, which means that basically you're trying to refit your midfield, which means that then you should be working very hard to improve your draft position, considering this is a midfielder's draft.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
We did neither. We did nothing. In fact, we weakened our midfield.
That's why I called it the Seinfeld situation, because it's all about nothing. We did nothing.
Am I sounding better now?
Yeah, so far.
Okay, well, I'll try again.
There might be a rant filter.
Maybe there's a rant filter. Look,
there is a
oh
rant
my God,
filter.
there is a rant
There is
filter.
a rant filter.
all I wanted to say on this is that
Just won't let him say it.
No, it just won't let Pete say it.
am I breaking up again? Am I?
Yes, mate, you are.
Only when you're about to tell us what you want to say.
Every time you say all I want to say, it decides to
drop out.
beat you up the ass.
You still don't know what you want to say.
For me, I would have rather paid some overs this year and risk finishing 6th again,
This is bad.
rather than be in our
Corey-
position we are now and finish in 6th, because that's
All right.
going to frustrate me more as a supporter.
Right, Corey, ball's on the line. Would you pay 2 first rounders for Gibbs?
If we were getting a second in return, yes.
No, that's not the question. 2 first rounders.
Oh, yes.
Well, yours are gone.
We just need to make things happen. I've been banging this drum a lot over the last couple of weeks, but the club of mediocrity, and it's come to the point where supporters seem to be accepting that as trying and seeing it as though we're still making finals.
Yeah, but
That's
no.
good enough.
But Corey, what we should have done is that Gibbs. Well, I don't know whether he approached us or whether we approached him, but he should have only been Plan A. There should have been Plan B, C, D, E, F. They should have been talking to half a dozen players or more
But
and
Macca,
trying to line them up.
the plan was we were going to the draft, according to the club, which we all know is total bullshit.
It is bullshit because, that means Rashudo's got no standing within the club because he said quite clearly we were out there trying to land a big fish for the midfield, didn't he?
Well, this is the
but
point I was going to
in fairness to Roo, he said draft, trade, or whatever. He didn't say in the trade period. He said we need to boost our midfield through the trade or the draft period or whatever. So he wasn't
we need
specific.
a big fish.
No, he did specifically have a big fish conversation. He said we were going out there to land a big fish. He did that, and that's without any qualification attached to it.
Pete, have another go.
I'm trying to make that now. I'm going to have another go. Clearly.
Oh my God.
It's not happening tonight.
It's just not happening. That's incredible.
When did you put the bullshit filter on?
This was a case where, and we do,
Pete,
because-
it's just not happening, dude.
I'm giving up.
It's not happening. Try going out and in again. Are you on wireless or are you on Ethernet? Oh, I can't even
So I'll
answer
switch
that
back
one.
to internet.
Yeah, you better plug in if you can. Anyway, we'll continue. Now look,
I think I'll be
Can you
judging this
hear me
on how
now?
well we draft.
have another crack, Pete.
Right. Now I'm going to try again, and this is the last time. Okay. So what we know is that this deal was hatched quite some time ago, that Adelaide had significant notice that this was going to happen, and how they could have turned up at Trade Week and dropped the bomb that they did, and not be better organised to get that trade through is beyond me. And then to pay lip service to the supporters by saying that that pick 13 had always been the strategy, it's ridiculous that they would have 12 months of list management and come up with using the first rounder. Not going to happen. And it was a bit of an insult, I thought, to the intelligence of supporters. And so it seems to me that not only was the trade a hash, but also it was really, really poorly managed in a PR sense as well.
I think we all agree on that.
Did we get that?
Yep, you're all clear now, mate.
Well, no, not only did we get it, I think you repeated 100% what we were all saying in different ways.
Yeah, it was a wasted trade period, and Pete, you're absolutely right. It was insulting for the club to come out afterwards and try to put a positive spin on that. And not only was it insulting, it was really disappointing in the context of what the club's been about, or supposedly been about, over the last 12 months.
Yep, and if you can polish it as much as you like, but a turd's still a turd, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it comes back to that whole accepting mediocrity thing. It's just been a bugbear of mine for quite a few years now, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, Corey, you are right about that. But the other clubs, I mean, if you have a look at Hawthorn, for example, which is a club that doesn't accept mediocrity, on the surface they did crazy stuff, like Mitchell for 88 and Lewis unintentionally in the end, but for a very, very cheap draft pick. But the whole point that is they've got they had other plans. They had very clearly what they were going to do in terms of the players they wanted to bring into their game, because Clarkson thinks that's necessary for them to have another crack at the premiership. So you're quite right. There's no mediocrity there.
And they've shortened their rebuild. They know in 2 to 3 years they're going to have to go through a rebuild. So they've made a few hard decisions now. And, they probably don't have to go through that to a certain extent now, because they've moved on the Mitchells and Lewises, and they've brought in Tom Mitchell and Jaeger O'Meara, or Jaeger O'Meara, however you pronounce it.
Well, and the simple fact that they got the O'Meara deal done in the air speaks to the difference between that club and our club. I mean, it took them until 10 minutes before the end to get it done, but in the end they got it done, and we just didn't get it done.
And why they got it done is because the Suns folded because they got such a good deal with Jared Lyons.
Well, by all reports, it certainly helped the situation.
Yeah. Oh, no, Marcus Ashcroft come out and said that.
Yeah.
The reason they got the O'Meara deal done is because they got such a good deal for Jared Lyons.
Yeah, I know, and that's absolutely true. We not only did we not get the player that we were after, we undersold the player we did get rid of.
Well, and assisted 2 other clubs in the process.
Unbelievable. No, it was just. I think the club should hang its head in shame, because I think it did embarrass itself.
Corey, you know this better than me. With that draft pick 48, is the intent behind just copying that trade that we did? Is there, and I don't pretend to have a great understanding of the point system, and did we do that with the knowledge that effectively it would just give us enough points to draft Jarman? Is that what that was all about, do you think?
No, point, because Hawthorn's first pick is 88, with our pick being 89 directly after them. So 43 has no bearing on that at all, unless another club was to bid on him.
Yeah, no, it does, because it won't just be Hawthorn bidding, potentially. I mean, Hawthorn basically traded themselves out of the running for Ben Jarman, and they pretty much signed their intentions on Jarman, I believe, by trading down. But, I know for a fact that Ben's talked to a number of clubs, and, there's still not a solid indication that he's going to nominate Adelaide. The chances are that he will, given what we seem to have done in terms of positioning, because I think getting 43 in, I think, covers us up to about pick 21. Would that be right, Corey, I reckon?
Oh, off the top of my head, yes.
Something like that, 21 to 23 or something like that. So if a club comes in below 21 with a nomination for Benjamin, then we've got him covered. And there's no way that a club's going to come in above 21 because it's just not worth that. No, so no. I think you're right, Peter. I think that trade was pure and simple to bring in Benjamin. And all due respects to Ben, and he's a very skillful player, but it's a big call to make.
And that's where my concerns come into it, because the depth of the draft are still going to be getting some quality around 43. Again, like you, being is not of bad quality. He comes from the German line, so obviously he knows what he's doing.
But 43 is effectively our second pick, isn't it?
That's right. And we've already basically sold that off for Ben, so potentially.
I think you're right, yeah. And I think he probably will nominate us, and because he hasn't nominated the club, I think he has sat back till after the trade period. There's no point in him nominating a club that he can't get to. So I think that he's probably sat back and just waited.
Well, no, to be honest with you.
He said that he was going to do it at the end of last week in an interview a few weeks back.
I thought he said end of the month.
Well, he's got until the 31st of October, so he's got another 6 days. But the last conversation I had with my connection on Benjamin was that he was solidly considering not nominating at all, because all he really cares about is getting drafted, and he's not too fussed about who he plays for. So,
But for an idea of guys who could be available around that pick 40 are guys like Jack Maybum, Alex Villas, although he had quite a good end to the year, so he may jump up a little bit higher. Miles Paholke may be one that could be around that pick. Jamie Hampton, who is Kirtley's brother, is a quality young player. And Brennan Cox also. So there's a few names around that could go at that 43 mark. So, yeah, it's interesting to say the least, but that's our trade period to a T.
Is it responsible of the club to go into one of the deepest midfield drafts for quite some time, which is an area that we're so deficient in, with effectively one valuable pick?
Yeah, that thought crossed my mind as well. We've really buggered it up in every direction.
But then, Macca, this tails back into what we were discussing before. If you're only going to go into this draft with one pick, right, if that's the outcome, then why not go the other way? Particularly considering Gibbs has fallen in your lap. Why not go the other way? We could have sold this year's first, next year's first, and next year's. We couldn't. Well, according to the Hawthorn and Geelong judgment, we could have next year's second, and got in Gibbs and Rockcliffe.
I would have been happy with that.
Well, so you're okay with that. So in Corey's scenario, where we paid 2 firsts and got a second back, and used that second for Rockcliffe, you would have been happy with that.
Yes, I would have been happy with that.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you pay 2 firsts for Gibbs anyway?
No, I just think you're then publicly being seen to be an organisation that's very easily screwed.
No, it's not about the deal. That's what everyone's getting hung up on. It's like, we can't be looking to get screwed. We need a bloody midfielder, Macca. Who cares what I put an analogy on the board the other night. It's like if you wake up at 2:00 in the morning with a splitting headache and you got no Panadol, do you wait for 5 hours until the bloody shop's open, or do you go to the on the run and pay $5 instead of $2.50? You go to the on the run and pay $5. It's not about getting screwed. It's about an outcome. And in this situation, with Gibbs falling in our lap and wanting us to take him, surely you just get the deal done.
Actually, I thought also that Mark Bickley had a decent view of it as well. He was quite obviously very, very bullish on us getting this trade done, and I thought he had a fairly good spin on it when he said that, if you look at last year, we brought in 2 first-round picks in Miller and Duday, and if you actually look at it then across a 3-year period, it means that for the period 15, 16, 17, we do get effectively 3 first-rounders in. So if you look at it that way, the fact that we've got 2 last year means that.
Pete, your microphone's muffled now.
I think what Pete was trying to say there was the fact that because last year we did use 2 first-round draft picks, that covers us for the 4-year qualification period. So even if we were to give away, if we had have traded next year's first round, it wouldn't have affected our ability to trade the year after that.
No, and also just the fact that from a list management perspective, you've got 3 first rounders in across that 3-year period, and so if you lose next year's first, it's not actually that big a deal because judged across a 3-year period, you've got 3 first round level people in. And so it's not that big of an issue. And then the other issue is that next year's trade period is another trade period. You can always, if you're desperate to get back into the first round, then engineer something next year. It's like having a credit card. Just get it now, buy it now because you need it, and then pay it off next year.
Yeah, but even in our private lives, we don't pay double what it's worth.
Well, I'd pay $5 for Panadol at 2:00 in the morning, Macca. I wouldn't go there every time and pay it. But when I've got a specific need and it's urgent, which our need for a class midfielder is urgent, and we've got all the other pieces in the puzzle supposedly in place, if you're of that mind, which a lot of people are, so if you're of that mind and the A-grade midfielder drops in your lap, who cares what you pay for him? You just get him in.
Yeah, but he's not... That's sort of acting like he's the only one on the planet. And
well, he was, Macca, because we've got no one else.
Because we never did our bloody proper research. We never. We should have had options. As I said, 5 or 6 options we should have had going for us.
Well, that's indisputable. But given that you'd have to say that a South Australian-born player wanting to come home to play for the Crows, who happens to be an A-grade midfielder in a position that we're sorely lacking, that's a once-in-a-blue-moon situation. And in that kind of situation, I think all this stuff about, he's not worth this, he's not worth... Who gives a shit? Just get it done.
Well, my opinion is that there was an error made much earlier in that. We should never have let Noble go. Noble should have been made to serve his contract out with the Crows during the trade period because it was obvious that Reid looked like a boy up against a Goliath when he was up against Sauce.
Well, I don't think it was Reid's fault.
No, but
Noble would have given up 3 first-round picks and a second round pick as well, though.
Love it. Hey, also
a noted lack of faith in Noble there by some.
No, it's not a lack of faith. You look at what GWS have done this year. They're giving pick 5s and pick 7s away for chump change, and I'm a big fan of Curtly Hampton's, and I was stoked that we got him, but we gave away a future second-round pick for him.
Yeah.
So you got to, It's hard to really. You can't compare all deals, but when you look at it that way,
it's true. And you look at it in the context that they would have already known what this year's draft was going to look like last year. I mean, they know it 2 to 3 years out. So in the knowledge that this year's draft was going to be heavy on midfielders, they still were willing to give up our second rounder. And I think it's because they honestly believed that they were going to get a second round pick for Lions. And in retrospect, that's complete furphy. There's no plan. This has been my bugbear all along. Everything is very haphazard. We'll overpay a David McKay, we'll overpay a Josh Jenkins, but we won't overpay for the bloke that we really need, which is Bryce Gibbs. It just doesn't make any sense.
But in defence, though, I think we have thought about the future as well with not pulling the trigger on Bryce Gibbs, and that's thinking about Jackson Edwards in 2017. So, there is a method to the madness in a way.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but we get Jackson with a second and a third.
We do, yes. Yeah, but, if we're giving up our second next year as well, and, yeah.
Can I just say one thing as well? I think that has also been lost in all of this, and that is that there are, I think, very, very significant reputational issues which come out of it as well, and reputational issues on two sides. Firstly, I think it's our reputation, obviously, amongst higher level players who may be thinking of sticking their neck out and getting left at the altar, which is what we did to Bryce Gibbs. And, players would be sympathetic for him, the fact that he now has to go back after having made that public announcement, and he's got to go back and face his teammates and actually play a season of football with him. Now, if you're any decent footballer, you do not want to be doing that. And so you would have to be second guessing whether you're going to put your neck on the line to join this club when they've shown so publicly that they can't get the deal done. That's one. Now, I also think that the reputation of the club suffers from it, in terms of its own players as well, because, some of the, if you look at, some of our senior players who would know what the deficiency is and would know what the issues were in terms of getting ourselves into premiership contention, they've seen now that, Adelaide has not got the job done. And so what does it speak of in terms of how their positions are valued and their the capacity to continue playing in their prime when, in 2 or 3 years' time, guys like Walker, Betts, these kind of guys are getting that bit older and, their primes are past. So I think that on two levels, we've really done the wrong thing.
And on your first point, there's a few big names coming into free agency and out of contract next year. So you've got Martin, you've got Fife, you've got Shill, you've got Josh Kelly, 4 quality footballers that we should be trying to put our claws into. But, yeah, you've done the damage this year, like you've said.
I don't think that'll come into it at all when you're negotiating with those guys, if we are negotiating with those guys. And if we had have done the 2 first rounders for Gibbs, you wouldn't be talking about it anyhow, because you would have had no ammo whatsoever to be participating.
Wouldn't have needed it.
They're free agents. Right. I'm talking about you look at someone like O'Meara. Now, O'Meara, his club, is very, very annoyed at losing him, and even as an uncontracted player, you've got his home club coming out very, very strongly, saying how difficult they're going to make it. And you know what? Hawthorn are just holding his hand, saying, you know what? Don't worry, because we're Hawthorn. We'll get this done. Put your faith in us. And they get it done. As has been said before, they get it done. And so you can stick your neck out and they will get you over the line and get you to their club.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue about that. I mean, it is a classic failure.
I'm more concerned about the next time a bloke like Rory Sloane comes out of contract, or even the year before he comes out of contract, because I actually think this trade period has set this club back massively. We haven't improved at the top end, and we haven't given ourselves enough draft options to improve from underneath. And if I was a Rory Sloane at the Adelaide Football Club following trade week, I'd be feeling extremely deflated in terms of the possibilities for getting premiership success at this club now, because to my way of thinking, we now are 2 to 3 years away, and Rory will be 30 by then. And if someone comes knocking next year for Rory Sloane, I reckon there's a likelihood that he'll consider it. St Kilda had a very big dip for him a couple of years ago, and I reckon if they come knocking again, then particularly if their upwards trajectory continues, I reckon he'll have a good think about it, particularly considering he got snubbed for the leadership as well. And to me, Pete, that's the biggest reputational issue, which is one of the points that you made, was internally, I think, from the playing group. I think the playing group may have lost a bit of confidence in the club's administration as a consequence of this balls up.
No, I don't think that Roy's going anywhere. I think he's a true Crow, and he loved being with the Crows. And
Macca.
no, I'm serious. I think I think he's a loyal type player, and I think he will stay. I don't see him as a risk, a flight risk.
He's been snubbed for the leadership, which he desperately wanted, and now he's faced with another year at least, and maybe 2, maybe even 3, where he's got to play a lone hand in the midfield once again. And
Well, then
if I'm Rory Sloane and I'm in that situation, and a club like St Kilda or another up and coming club that's on an upwards path comes knocking on my door, then I'd be seriously considering it. Loyalty's got nothing to do with it.
well, the way I see it is that we haven't gained anything, and I don't believe we've lost opportunity, but we haven't lost anything tangible. And
Of course we have. Opportunity is tangible.
No. What I'm saying is of what we already had, and other than Lions. But unfortunately, I do agree with you. We have thrown away the opportunity to advance, but not. We haven't lost any of the actual resources we've still got in other than Lions. So. There will be, and I hate that expression I've come up with, but there will be some organic growth. But I think unless the club ends up in the top 4, it is going to have egg all over its face for what's happened in this trade period.
Let me ask you a question, Macca, and sorry, Pete, I'm
Corey and I are here too.
Yeah, sorry, but
Yeah.
I just asked Macca. I'm interested in Macca's opinion on this. In 2014, the year before Patrick Dangerfield became a free agent, would you have offered him a contract for $1.2 million over for 5 years?
If I had him stay, yes.
Would you have put that contract in front of him, 1.2 for 5? So basically, what's that? A 6 million contract?
Yep, with a captaincy attached to it as well.
No, forget the captaincy. Let's talk about money. Because we've had this thing of not valuing our players. It's an unrealistic thing, and we're not actually recognising the environment that we're operating in. And I reckon if we put 1.2 or even something ridiculous like 1.5 in front of Danger, he would have stayed. Now, why wouldn't the club do that?
I think the club really... Well, I don't know whether it was possible because of the missus situation that she wanted to go home, but we should have done everything possible. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't, I don't know. But what you're saying is realistic to me.
Well, we came out specifically and said no player will get paid $1 million at Adelaide.
Yeah, I know, and so we probably didn't. But no, you don't... And that's one of the reasons why we're talking about all this, because we lost a resource in Danger that... comes along very rarely.
Okay, let's have a look and see if there's anything that we can salvage from this period this year. There has been a lot of talk of picking up Michael Barlow as a delisted free agent, who was delisted by Freo. It was yesterday or today.
Today, yeah.
It was today, was it? And Corey, I was gonna ask you, mate, what are your thoughts on that pickup, and how do you see, I guess, Michael generally, and what he might be able to add to Adelaide? Because I think that certainly from some whispers that have been heard, and also just some of the reporting that's been going on in the mainstream media today, it would seem like there is a fair likelihood it will happen.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Bone come out today saying he's injury prone and we shouldn't go near him and blah 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 in typical Bone way. But I had a look at it, and he's only missed 12 games in 4 years, with 5 of them being this year. And you take out the freak incident from his first year, and he's played 150 games. So I don't have a problem with it from that point of view. Yes, he is 28, but look at our year this year with injuries or lack of injuries. Look, it can't go on that way each year, but we seem to have the right people in the right places, putting our guys' fitness and body first, which is a good sign for one. And then we're going to get him for free, which is another thing. So I don't see.
Is it been confirmed that he's actually a delisted free agent and not just a
today.
delisted player?
So he's a delisted free agent. They automatically become delisted free agents now.
Not if they've been offered a contract.
Yeah, which he hasn't.
Has that been? That's the bit that I was wondering whether that's.
Yeah, he
confirmed,
confirmed
there was
that.
some conjecture.
No, well, the way I read it, he confirmed that was the case.
No, you're right, Corey. You're right.
Yeah. And I think while he doesn't have the pace, he is an extractor. Finds a lot of the ball himself. He offers a run with style to his play as well, which is something we severely lack. And there's been a lot of talk about, obviously, our outside speed, which I don't see as big a problem as what people are making it out to be. We've got the likes of Riley Knight, Curtly Hampton, even Hugh Greenwood showed how impressive he was, considering he only had half a pre-season, so he's going to improve again. I think, we should be throwing a bit at him for the 2 to 3 years that he could offer.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Corey, because I think you just summed it up very nicely. He's an extractor. He can be used as a run-with player. He did that with Robbie Gray. He cut Robbie Gray out the game. That was last year. Third last game he played for the year, Barlow. And he got 43 possessions himself while he held Robbie Gray down to a very ordinary game. So it's not like the guy can't play anymore. And he's not a pretty player, but he does a job. And as you say, you get him for absolute nothing. So I think that it's something to add to the ranks. And there will be injuries, and you will need as many hands on deck as possible. So, some might argue it'll keep a young player out. In the long run, I don't think so, because if the young player is good enough, he'll get in.
And that's the thing. We don't guarantee him that he's going to play every game of the year. Should he be fit? If form dips, he gets dropped. And I don't think that.
You're talking about Adelaide Football Club here. A young player could be good enough and not get in. That's been proven.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yes.
But this is the year of organic growth, Phoenix. Get with it.
I'm sick of hearing that already. I think that makes me more sick than actually not getting Gibbs.
I had to put it out there.
Yeah. Barlow allows us to stay 6 to 8.
Yeah,
that's my opinion, and I agree with everything you're saying, Corey, about his stats and his ability and all the rest of it. But it's just another each way bet. It doesn't propel us forward. It allows us to tread water.
I think what it does do sorry, mate, you go.
Oh no, I was just going to say, but it's that extra assistance to Rory Sloane as well, because we don't want him getting bashed and crashed every week. We need another bigger body, because he'll come in, Barlow, if it does happen, and he'll be our biggest midfielder.
Yep.
Oh, significantly bigger than everybody else that we've
centimeters.
Got. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
but he uses the ball so well too.
Well,
I think he goes
really.
around 76,
I disagree
77%.
I disagree with that. His disposal efficiency is up because it gives 10-metre chip passes all the time. He doesn't cut a team up with his disposal.
No, but
his disposal is actually poor.
But I think his disposal out of congestion is what brings other players into it.
Yeah.
We
have one of those blokes, Jared Lyons.
Disposal by hand, you mean, mate?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Tackles.
You're right, though, Fees. The word is had.
Yeah. Well, getting Barlow in basically means that we got pick 43 for free. That's what it amounts to.
Correct.
And he'd probably come close to taking the wage that we were giving Jared Lyons, or a little bit more. Yeah. He said he just wants to play.
Well, I'd laugh if we offered him 300k. Jared Lyons would go down and shoot someone, I reckon.
Yeah.
I think what it shows to me is if they do pick him up, what it shows to me is that there was a strategy, and that in terms of approaching this trade period, and that strategy was to go out and get a midfielder, an experienced midfielder, a good inside midfielder, which Gibbs was. I think we had that discussion before, and so they've gone for Barlow instead, and I think it puts to bed that ridiculous notion of our strategy always being that we were just going to take 13 to the draft. I think that really puts that to bed. And
saves
and the fact
face
is,
a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, in one way, it saves them face in the sense that they get something to replace Gibbs with, and so it means that their original strategy is fulfilled. But by the same token, it also just they shoot themselves in the foot a bit by that ridiculous PR that they did after the Gibbs trade falling through. But look, I sort of I'm kind of neither here nor there with Barlow. I mean, I can look back and I can see some great stats, and I can see, Corey, I can certainly see your point that he is a big midfielder, and he's a big-bodied midfielder, and he will clear a path for our smaller guys. He's very good in congestion, and I know what you were trying to say, and I know, Fane, what you were trying to say as well, and that is that, no, he doesn't cut you up with 50-metre, bullet passes to open up play, but Corey, I get what you're saying. He does operate well out of congestion, and his DE would probably be up a bit, with good handball in place. So,
he'll give blokes like Laird and Smith an extra, 2 to 3 metres.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
That's a big deal with the way they use the ball.
Yeah, no doubt. So anyway,
well, Pete's just dropped out again.
Yeah.
It's not. We're gonna have to sack him as host. This is unacceptable from such a professional organisation.
Jeez, I tell you what, I'm having a shocker tonight. I'm having an absolute shocker.
Yeah.
All right,
go on, mate.
No, I was going to say. So that's the Michael Barlow. I think the DFA window opens on the 31st of October. I understand, or is it 1st of November? It is. Sorry,
November, yeah.
1st of November until I think it's about the 7th or 8th or somewhere thereabouts. So, won't be too long before we find out.
And then 10th to the 18th, and then 10th to the 16th, and then 17th and 18th. Which, so may as well make it the 11th to the 18th.
Why the hell do they have 4 DFA windows? Talk about stretching things out.
You can delist other players depending on who else gets moved on, and
the delisting isn't necessary all over at this stage.
No, I know, but why not just have one at the end?
Final list lodgement is until the 20th of November.
Yeah, but it
21st.
Gives a bit of certainty to those other players, though, I think, in fairness to them.
They can always go into the pre-season draft, Macca.
No. I think what they've introduced there is a very, very good idea, the way they do it. Because when you're delisted, you haven't got a home. And if another club gives you a home, it's a good thing, I think.
They should just make it 2 or 3 days. They've shown that it doesn't work by stretching things out.
Yeah. I mean, these players, like, if a deal's going to get done in one window, it'll get done in one day, not bloody a week.
Yeah.
With us, it doesn't get done in 2 weeks, mate.
Well, that's right.
Now, with Nikki not being here this week, do we want to do the Cock Wombling and Numb Nut of the Week award? Or is that something that just belongs to for her to give out? No, there we go.
Underground, overground, wombling free.
Rightio. So anyway, I guess we could. There was plenty of nominations that came from Trade Fortnight, wasn't there?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I've got to nominate myself, purely for the fact that I'm finding myself agreeing with Kane Corns far too much. Yeah,
nice.
It's painful to say, but it was actually one of my highlights for the whole trade period. The way he spoke and conducted himself on trade radio, and it just gives me the chills saying it.
In fairness, he's going to have a future. I think
he does. Yeah.
I think there's two different Kane Corns, isn't there? The one on national media, he's very, very good. I really like him as well. I think he's excellent. But there's also the one that comes back in his in South Australia and to try and take the agitating Port supporter role, and that's when he gets up everyone's nose.
Yes, and that's the thing that lets him down.
My nomination for the Cockwomble Award would be the Adelaide Football Club and its trade period results.
You have to pick an individual, Macca.
Justin Reid.
Justin Reid.
It's going to be Reid, is it?
He's a scapegoat.
No, I reckon it's Mark Ricciuto. This has got Mark Ricciuto's fingerprints all over it. Rue's the punter. He loves a punt. And the fact that he came out and said that we were trying to call Sauce's bluff and we got outfoxed, that's a Mark Ricciuto move. I reckon it's Rue.
I did see on Twitter that someone mentioned it's Andrew Fagan's first mistake, and that was for signing Justin Reid just after he started.
Well, those three are all on the list management committee. It's Fagan, Rue, JR, and there was one other, probably Noble before he left, and Pikey.
And Rue's on it too, isn't he?
Well, Rue's the chairman. So really, in terms of list management, the buck stops with him.
Well, shall we ask those three to hold hands in a circle and we'll nominate them?
Yeah, well, I can't think of too many other people that qualify this week. Everyone else seemed to get done what they wanted to get done. So, yeah, not too much competition.
I never thought we'd actually sit here and see the day where we're looking at Rue as being the favourite as the cot-wobbling numbnut, but he certainly is taking centre stage.
Yeah, I guess it happens to the best of us, doesn't it?
Well, I was a nomination a couple of weeks ago, and Corey's one this week.
And I'm just too pig-headed to nominate myself.
Me too, Phoenix. Others will do it for me.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so we'll go with Rue.
Very
Done. Very good. He deserves it.
We'll let him know on Twitter.
good. So what's next?
Well, I think
Way
in terms of how footy goes, Corey, you'd be able to fill us in probably. I think once we get through this DFA period, then we start looking towards the draft. How far away are we from the draft?
November 25 is the draft.
And one question to you, Corey. With all the other delisted players, is there anything in there amongst the crumbs, or are they just crumbs?
I think they're just crumbs.
You wouldn't have a look at Jack Grimes?
I don't... He'd purely be depth, and he'd probably play twos all year.
Played 100 games of AFL footy.
Yeah, but do you see him moving Laird, Smith, Lever out of the side? So that's the thing that would need to weigh up.
Depends. Who we've got to come in if Luke Brown continues his patchy form?
Duday, who I'm a massive fan of.
Would he play on a small forward?
Oh, definitely. He plays small or tall.
The other question, Corey, is there's still 2 or 3 players that have not been signed. So, what is in store for them?
Yeah, you'd assume we sign Harry Deer because we're not going to get anything for him now that all the trade period's over. I did see on Twitter today that there's a rumour Greg has been offered a year contract.
With us?
With us, yes. And Cheney got offered, was announced from the Crows, on the Crows Twitter last week that, yeah, he's contracted for next year also.
Does that cover
Henderson?
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything about him.
I did call Griggy in my last Crows Trade Talk article, actually. I think towards the end, I made a note of that, which was something that that I got wind of from probably my most reliable source, and that was that the club were going to attempt to broker a trade for Greg, but that if there was no interest or there was nothing that no home for him, that it was actually likely that they were going to keep him on for one more year.
Assuming he wants to hang around. And
Seems
this is
about
probably
right.
probably the flaw in the system because the Crows offer him a contract. All of a sudden, he's not a DFA anymore. And if he did have designs on moving clubs, then that severely it means the only thing he can do now is go into the pre-season draft.
Which is what would be weighed up before a contract was put in front of him, you'd assume. Although,
clubs would be in his ear.
yeah.
Clubs would be saying, "Look, don't sign anything. We don't want to trade for you, but we're thinking you're picking you up as a DFA."
No, it's not about signing, Pete. If he gets offered a contract with Adelaide, then he automatically is not a DFA.
He would say, "I'd want to." Obviously, he would know what the writing's on the wall. That he's getting a year max, so he'd probably put him on hold. Say, "Don't offer me a contract. I want to see what happens."
Well, you'd like to hope so, because do you see what I mean, though, in terms of it puts the player in a difficult situation?
Yeah, definitely.
They just have a conversation, though. As Corey said, they just have a conversation, and he would just say, "Look, I think I'm going to get some offers. Do you really want to keep me? We're not, we're 50-50. Well, just don't offer me anything, and I'll look at my options."
Yeah. Well, you'd hope that's how it goes down.
And the other player, Andy Otten, wants to scoot with Andy.
Yeah. Obviously, there was no interest. Can't really see him hanging around to play twos again next year. But is he good enough to play, best 22 at another club?
No, he's not.
Oh, I think he might be.
I'm a fan of Andy Otten. I think he's a good footballer, and I think he's still got a bit to offer. And I think that he's still a handy backup for us. And he played some good football last year. You got to remember that we had a remarkable year last year where we just didn't get injuries, and certainly no significant injuries, and so he wasn't ever called upon. But I'd be quite comfortable if Hartigan or Talia goes down, at least we've got somebody that can come in and play a role.
Yeah, you'd think Keith has overtaken him a bit though with his how well he's come into the game, and again, like Greenwood, it's another year in the pre-season because he didn't really do one. He committed late after the Strikers season, so yeah, we've got one there also.
I forgot about him, mate. I actually forgot about him. So yeah, no, he had what looked to be a decent season as well. And if he has a good pre-season and gives it a decent crack, then he may be an option next year.
You'd probably see him come in before Otten.
Well, he can only come in if we got a spot for him because he's a Cat B rookie. So you're relying on a long-term injury there to get him in.
Yeah, and you'd think that, but it's all sort of ifs and buts.
And what would Greenwood's chances of being promoted onto the A list?
I would like to see it happen.
I would,
but that's because he's one of my one of my favourites. He's got a lot to like about him.
Well, in my opinion, they either do it or they cast him off. What's the point in hanging on to him for another year as a Cat B rookie? There's no
because
point.
We can.
I mean, he's 25 years old. Like, you're not going to debut a 27-year-old, are you?
But we can upgrade him mid-season if we want to as well.
Again, only if we've got the space.
I would. I'm not sure how we're sitting with terms of delistings and draft picks, etc. But I would certainly be upgrading him.
Well, we've got Rolly O'Brien that's got to get upgraded. You would have thought.
Yes,
John O'Beach should have to be a chance, I reckon.
If Grigg and or Henderson go, then Greenwood's a shoo-in for me, I'd think.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Upgraded.
You'd hope so. I actually like Greenwood.
There's still a fair bit to play out.
I just hope that they don't stuff him around. I think I'm with you guys in terms of being excited about his potential. I reckon they've got to cut him loose and see what happens. Doesn't cost us anything.
Absolutely.
Particularly given what's transpired in the trade period.
Yeah, I just think he just might become an extra midfielder that's worth having in the team that we really weren't counting on.
Yep.
And not that I'm comparing football ability or anything, but he's of that Cripps and Bontempelli size.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely,
So,
yeah, lovely.
Oh, he's highly skilled as well. I had a good look at him in a couple of the SNFL games, particularly in the finals, and he is that guy that he'll only get you 15 to 20 possessions, and he's not got that vision to sort of be involved in a lot of link play, but he's very, very strong at stoppage, very, very good tackler, good clearance player, and goes forward and is very, very clever around goals. And so he does have a hell of a lot to offer.
He's as tough as old boots as well.
He is extremely tough. He is as hard as nails, and he's hard as nails at the contest. And so he wins good contested possession in close, and that's what you want from a guy that size. He's a beast. Very, very, very good player. So I hope it goes well. Look, we're probably out of time. I think we've gone a little bit over tonight. That's okay. We've plenty to chat about. We're a little bit annoyed at what happened at Trade Week, but we'll have to move on and hope that we can hit next year and get a little bit of organic growth. What do you think, guys?
Organic growth.
You're getting a Cockwomble nomination, Pete, for this microphone situation.
I just can't believe tonight's just been a shocker. I don't know what's going on.
It's a shambles, mate. It's a disgrace.
Maybe talking about the organic growth in Fagan's veggie patch or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, guys. Look, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Corey, thanks for being our guest tonight. Always great to have you along.
Yeah,
Macca and Fiend. Yeah, no, great to have you, and other guys, great to have you along with us. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. Good to have you all with us tonight, and we look forward to you joining us again next Tuesday night. We will continue with Crowcast. We've got the draft coming up, of course, but we'll also start looking at a few of the summer sports. We'll start looking at the A-League, the EPL, and some of the American sports as well.
Yeah, we've got Skipos on next week, so that'll be a good draft conversation. And obviously don't forget to like us, follow us, tweet us, do all that sort of gear, and drop into crowsfancentral.com from time to time as we drop in our thoughts as well, Pete.
Yeah, and also just for anybody that missed it, Corey joining us as a staff writer, we're really happy to have you along, mate, to chip in there and do some articles, and gives you a chance to do a little bit of your Crows barracking stuff rather than
definitely.
the AFL stuff that you have to do. So good to have you on board. All right, thanks very much for joining us, everyone, and we look forward to catching you next week on Tuesday Night Live.
Cheers, all.
Guys.
Thanks, bye.